The Israel-Hamas war has been ongoing since October 7th, and it's stirring up controversy not only overseas but back in Rockford. 23 News reporter Anthony Ferretti attended a peaceful protest Friday evening in support of the Palestinian people. Attendees were met with a counter-protest by people who stand with Israel.
We are here to shed a light in the dark room of bigotry and prejudice against Jews.
Roughly 3 weeks after Hamas's deadly attacks on Israel, local residents invested in both sides of the conflict say enough is enough.
We the people don't stand for what's happening in Gaza, and we don't support our government when they say they don't want a ceasefire.
Sarah Salem organized a peaceful protest Friday evening in support of the Palestinian people. Thousands have died in the Gaza Strip with limited access to food, water, and fuel during Israel's counterattacks. She says she has family overseas and is worried for their safety.
My family and my grandparents were displaced from their homes. They were subject to brutal occupation, and it's just changed the entire course of my life.
Meanwhile, dozens of local residents in support of Israel and its civilians also showed up. One person who didn't want to be identified says they have family in Israel.
It's my country, and I would like them to be safe and have a world peace, but we have to protect ourselves.
They say it was important for them to show up Friday evening to share their perspective on the situation.
When something like this, like October 7th happened, there's no way to deny it. And we're here to make sure, as a Jewish voice, that if we are quiet, the history will return.
Working for you in Rockford, Anthony Ferretti, 23 News.
Officials with the Israeli military say ground operations into Gaza are expanding.